Hi everyone, welcome back for a review video today. So this is my first batch review of the year. In 2023, I decided that I would focus on my bookshelves, all of the unread books on my bookshelves. I have a lot of them. So in 2022, I worked on my move from Montreal to Modesto. I gave and sold a lot of books in Montreal. And when I was here in California, because I was feeling a very big void in my heart from all of those books that I had let go, I bought a lot of books that stayed on my bookshelves because for a long time, for a couple of months, I have been feeling a little insecure with my situation regarding visa and work and all of that. So in late March, I decided to really go back to reading and focus a lot on those books. The way I'm going to do it is accumulate credits. For one novel, 1 credit, and with 5 credits, I can rent a book at the library, and for like 2 batches, so 10 credits, I can not only rent another book from the library, but also buy a new book and read them. So I need to read those books before I move on to like the next batch. And graphic novels and comics and novellas, there's this whole calculation thing. I will spare you the details, but in the end, it's just about reading the books that I have. So this is my an batch review. I'm looking down because my notes are down here. So the first book that I read is In the Woods by Tana French, an Irish author. This is the first in the Dublin Murder Squad series. I really enjoyed this book. I really liked it. I enjoyed the characters, even though the main one is a bit of a douche sometimes. And I really enjoyed the pacing and I guess the amount of information you have at each step of the investigation that made for a quick read for a long book. So for this story, you follow the investigation of a murder, the murder of a young girl, 12, 13 years old, whose body is found on an archaeology dig thing, but it's also where entrepreneurs want to build a road or like something of some kind. And so the surroundings of where the body is found brings a lot of conflicts and suspects, in addition to her family and her friends and the usual. So that was very interesting. There's also a subplot where the main investigator, in his past, there's been some disappearance of 2 of his friends and himself, but he was found later on. An unsolved mystery that happened in the same woods, and there are similarities and connections between the 2 events, and the main plot and the subplot really intertwine well during the course of the story, during the book. And sometimes the subplot takes like too much space or breaks the flow of the main story, but here I found that it was done very, very well, and I quite enjoyed that. One thing that I didn't like happened at near the end of the book. I won't say what. If you've read the book, you probably can guess what it is. I just found that was completely irrelevant and useless, and just added pages just for the sake of adding pages. Maybe it will become relevant in future stories and future books, but for now, for this one, I didn't feel the need for that thing. Nevertheless, good read, really enjoyed it. In 5 years, I will probably read the next one. So the second book is Away by Amy Bloom. I followed a writing class on Coursera last year, by the end of last year, and Amy Bloom was one of the teachers, and I was very curious to learn more about her work. I had never heard of her before, And so I found this one at the local used bookstore, now closed, unfortunately. And it was a very short one, so I thought, I'll try. It's the story of a woman who is away from her home and wants to find the remnants of her family who are probably away from home. So it's early 20th century. Lillian is a Russian Jew and her family is attacked and killed, but she manages to like send her little girl out and says like, run, just to save her, and herself survives the event, the attack. Later on, she will learn by a neighbor that that person saw the body of her child on the river. So she thinks that her little daughter is dead. She moves to the United States to make a life here and tries to survive using her advantages as a woman and others to build some kind of secure and comfortable, somewhat comfortable life here. There's this numbness to the main character, a detachment that I really felt as a reader too. So there were moments that were heartbreaking, but I was like going in and out of the emotion. I wonder if it's intentional, because I feel like this is how the character was also reacting to what happened in her life. But as a reader, it was both interesting to feel the same way I think the character feels, but also disturbing because I wanted to be a little bit more emotionally involved. She learns very quickly, or at least someone tells her very quickly, that her daughter might not be dead. And so she embarks on a journey to travel through America and Canada to reach Alaska, to later on reach Russia, to find her little girl. So we see this journey and all of the hardships for a woman in that time to do that, and the weird ass solutions that some people find to keep her safe. So yeah, very heartbreaking sometimes, but yeah, this detachment felt it made for a very discontinuous read sometimes. I had issues with dialogues also, or I couldn't understand I couldn't understand what was going on, and then there's like a sentence or something that happens, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they've been talking about. But I think that's more a me problem than the problem of the book in itself. Maybe my concentration wasn't there, or there's cultural references. I don't know, but yeah. So I did enjoy the book. It wasn't perfect for me, but I am interested in looking more of her work. I know she's written a book after the death of her partner, a nonfiction book, a book about grieving. So I think I would be interested in reading that maybe next if I go back to that author. The third book is a Canadian book, a book by a French-Canadian writer, Il pleuvait des oiseaux by Jocelyne Saucier. The title in English is And the Birds Rain Down, translated by Rhonda Mullins. I read the original French version, of course, so I cannot say anything about the quality of the translation. I have no idea, but it is translated. This is another short book. I do like short books. A photographer who's interested in the Great Fires in Ontario, beginning of 20th century. Yeah. She's trying to find like the survivors of those great fires, and so she goes into the woods to reach this tiny community of people who have decided to live outside of society and its demands. Unfortunately, when she reaches this community, she meets two elderly men who were the companion of the last survivor, and they've been living there as hermits for a while, and you see how they manage this life and how this new presence of the photographer sort of disturbs their tranquility. There'll be an elderly woman who will join them also at some point, and this decision will be probably the first act of freedom in that woman's life. And the book, the main characters of the book are these elderly people who make the choice to live their last days, who knows, the way they want to live them. It's about choice, it's about dignity, it's about self-determination, and all those little moments that make a life: happiness, joy, sorrow, regret, all of that jazz. And it's very beautiful. It's endearing and magical, and we rarely read about elderly people, I feel, in novels. And this rendering is interesting because they're not necessarily looking at their past. They're very much in the present and their future, whatever future they have. And I guess this is that little aspect of not being an elderly person reflecting on the past, but living in the moment. I felt that was very full of hope and just very interesting. She has a very simple prose, but can convey very vivid images with that too. Just the title of the book is sort of an example of that. But I really enjoyed reading that. It's the first one I read from Jocelyne Saucier. I had never heard of that writer before, but I will definitely read more or look into her backlog and all of that. This story has been made into a movie, a Quebec movie, Québécois. I don't know if it's been translated, but yeah. So there you go. The fourth one is a graphic novel, Good Talk, by Mira Jacob. It's a memoir of some sort. The author talks to her son about what it means to be a person of color in the United States today after 9/11. And it is through different conversations that she has with other people, the snippets of her life. It is very touching, infuriating, and also funny. So it's a serious read, but there is a lot of entertainment to get out of it, which does captivate your attention and just makes it more human, I would say. She talks about her relationships with her own family, her in-laws, her in-laws' friends, other people of color, other white people who don't want to see that, who don't want to see other white people's reaction to her and her family. It portrays all the little arrows that racism can send. So not necessarily the big things, but the things that seem inoffensive at first, but by their impact, by their reoccurrence, and it becomes oppressive and very and bring someone like her child to question what is his space in that bigger one. I didn't even notice until the end of the book that the drawings were actually like static. They're just like paper doll cutouts. And so if if she's talking, it's always like the same one repeated. I didn't even notice. I guess the story, the text was so vivid and natural that it didn't even bother me that there was something static to the visual. So yeah, I think she made those. Maybe that's why it's like that, and it's not like, but just, you know, the same face over and over again. So yeah, I really like this. I haven't read anything else by that author, but that was a good one, and I think a lot of people liked it. I think it's a universal good reads for people. The last one that comes from my bookshelves is a short story collection by Jhumpa Lahiri, the interpreter of Maladies. I've read other things by Jhumpa Lahiri, and some of them were good, some of them were great, but I usually enjoy reading her, and this was no exception. All of the stories were in between there, like some good, but some great as well. So I think that is good. None of them were a dud for me. So we see various aspects of the Bengali American life. I think there's one short story that is that does not occur in America at all. But you see that migrant life, the homesickness, the culture shock, the mixing of, and the clash of realities. And what I like about Jhumpa Lahiri's short stories is that there's no, it's not a story that is meant to surprise you in a haha moment, or to shock you. It's really a vignette. It's really entering a person's bubble for a while and looking at it in different ways, and then leaving it, exiting it a little more enriched, grown, inspired from that story of, you know, a person or a couple of people. My favorite one was probably when Mr. Pirzada came to dine. It's told through the eyes of a little girl. Her family welcomes every day to dine a man, Mr. Pirzada, who's from Pakistan and who's left his country to come to America to teach, and left his daughters behind. With everything that is happening in Pakistan, at one point he doesn't know what is going on, and what happened to his family. He has no news. And so through the presence of this person, there's like a whole new world that is open to the eyes of this little girl, and she learns about Pakistan and Bengal and India, and is makes the very reasonable and simple conclusions that a child would make about a situation like that. But it is nice to see how the presence of an adult in her life like that is just a temporary thing, how it can change her vision, her perception of the world, and probably change her as a person for the rest of her life. So I really enjoyed that. And so that made 5 books from my bookshelves. And for the library book, I decided to pick up The Stone Diaries by Carol Shields. I have seen Britta Bola and Supposedly Fun talk about this book recently. And there's also, I think this year, 2023, is the first year of the Carol Shields Literary Prize for American and Canadian authors. I won't do the list or anything like that, but I am keeping an eye on what is going on with that prize, because I am interested in reading more of especially Canadian authors. So I think that could be a great resource for me. So, Stone Diaries. This is the story of a woman's life, and I wasn't sure I would like it because the story of a woman's life is not really my cup of tea. But I was wrong. This was really, really, really good. I had a good batch of books here, but this one I went through very, very quickly, and I was very surprised by that. So it doesn't go through all of her life, but it covers all of her life. The book is separated in sections: childhood, love, marriage, work, career, I don't know. And each section focuses on a little period or certain events or a pivotal moment that summarizes, I guess, the change in her, the change in Daisy, the main character of the book. Sometimes it's through like simple prose, sometimes it's letters exchanged between characters, sometimes it's people's comments or reactions to her. And this diversity in style makes for a very dynamic read. It was something that could have been very boring, just then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. You just go straight to the point, in a sense, straight to the events that mark a juncture, something like that, in her life. The author chose those moments and dived into them and presented us the challenges that this woman faced, especially as a woman. Sorrow, the regrets, all of that jazz again. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It's very well written, even though it goes to the point. She has she has this capacity to say in just a few words or sentences, one paragraph, an anecdote that tells you exactly what the person is about, exactly who you're dealing with. And I really enjoyed that. Sometimes I would read a paragraph and I was like, okay, this is the wrap up, in the sense of that person. And sometimes they're like funny anecdotes, or a little absurd, but I really enjoyed that. Hopefully this will not be my last Carol Shields. So here we go. This was my first batch of reads for this year. I hope you enjoyed these reviews. If you've read or want to read one or many of these books, let me know down below. What are your reasons? What are your thoughts? I would really like to have a discussion with you on that. And in the meantime, have a happy life, and I will see you in the next one.